the thing.
Yeah, she said,
So
well,
many
we'll
don't.
deal with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot.
She said, we'll take that over the
Tell her
alternative.
that's sexy, yeah.
Just sexy.
You know, and I just got tired of the
Yeah.
spray can.
Did you do like this and say, hey, baby?
No, actually, she does not.
Chill.
Somehow I can see that.
She does not do that. No.
We're good to go? 1 through 5, actually. Oh, all right. Oh, y'all, it's a little bit early, but we're all here. Gang's all here. Here comes Bill. It's 2:01 on my iPad, but 1:58 on the picture. Okay, we're gonna split the difference and get started. I call our strategic planning meeting to order. Can I get a motion on the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a couple of things that we want to cover on our agenda today, the CSAS historic designation, and also changes to the park ordinance. Councilman Henderson has another commitment at 2:30, so we're going to start with park.
Yes.
Is there someone here from the mayor's office that's going to be talking about park, or is this just?
Well, no, so I think the conversation, Madam, if I may,
Yes,
Madam
you may.
Chair, and Councilwoman Burrs and Councilwoman Coonrod both brought up about the possibility of going to a 9-member board as opposed to the 7-member board that's prescribed by law. And I think the conversation was, what about alternates? You know, could we have 7 members and 2 alternates? And I think, if I remember right from the Public Safety Committee meeting last week, that was sort of what the conversation was gonna revolve around today. We did make a couple of tweaks, right, Phil, to the, to the ordinance from last week's meeting. You wanna mention those right quick?
Yeah, there was discussion last week regarding I guess, the problems about attending the training that would be required under the ordinance. We've added a new section E, F, and G to section, let me get my numbers right here. I believe it is section number 1661 that now says that at least each new member will have completed the Citizens Police Academy that's offered by the police department and any other training that's necessary before they can be a voting member. And they're excused from completing those requirements in the event of a pandemic or COVID outbreak here that would have an executive order that would limit their ability to do so. So that was the language that was discussed during our meeting last time here. And the provisions about the I guess the requirements for the, I guess the investigation of members on here is the way that it was before. The powers of the executive director of the body is the same as it was before. I did not make any other additional changes to that. I did at least try to make sure that we had the comprehensive report requirements that were done at least once a year or quarterly as requested by the committee, if you want to have those done as well. I did not change any of the numbering system yet because I was waiting on action of this body in a public meeting to tell me what you need to do beyond that.
Now, what about, there's supposed to be one other change about no district having more than one
Yes, sir.
representative.
And that is in the statute as well on here. No district can have more than one.
So in our agenda, it does not list alternate version. So is this particular version that version?
I know that Maria in my office prepared this as an alternate version. I'm not sure if it's on your list for tonight.
In our agenda packet,
Yes, sir.
it's not listed as an alternate version.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if it needs to be listed as alternate
I
version.
just need to make sure that they have those changes added, which y'all did make requests for in the last meeting.
Yeah.
But y'all need
If
to
you'll
do
make sure that that's on our current.
Yes, sir.
And so now, I guess the conversation needs to revolve around, and Phil I'm hoping you had an opportunity to look into this a little bit more about what the law actually states. Does it limit us to 7 members? Can we have alternate members that can sit in that committee? Kind of help us through that.
The state legislation actually does limit you to 7 members, it has a provision in there that says, there shall be a body of 7 members. Some of the provisions in state law say at least a certain number of people, which would give you the option to be able to increase that, but they do not. So if you take any action more than 7 members, then you would be contrary to what the state statute says.
Even by appointing alternate?
The problem that we got with alternates, I don't know what the alternates would be able to do. They could sit in and be advised just like any other member of the community can do, because all these meetings are going to be public meetings. And anybody in the community can sit in and listen to what is occurring in those meetings. They would not be able to vote in those meetings as an alternate on there, nor I don't think you can, there's no provision for alternates in the statute. But if you do that, then that is an issue that would be subject to, I guess, the state telling you that either it is inconsistent with state law or it is consistent in their review. It does not give you any option of less than, or to increase the number of members to be more than 7.
Madam Chair, and you can take this discussion where you want to, but I would recommend for tonight that we would just present the alternate version with the changes that we had mentioned last week. And then if somebody wants to make a motion to amend that by going to a 9-member board, I'd say we vote on that as an amendment tonight. But you take that conversation wherever you want to at this point.
Thank you, Chair. Phil, so if we're strictly going by what the law say,
Yes, ma'am.
because the law doesn't say that we should be paying an executive director.
It does say that an executive director is an employee, and as an employee, we have to pay our employees.
Well, which legislation you looked at? Because I done looked at it several times and read it from the top to the bottom.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
the only thing that mentions about pay is us paying for their background check and their fingerprints.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I know that it's been discussed, that the state had discussed and said, hey, it will be ideal to pay them, but it's not the law specific to say that we have to pay them. We're only responsible for covering the background checks.
Well, the background check is done in this matter. The purpose and who is the executive director is not I guess, a member of the committee, and it clearly says that no member of the committee shall receive compensation for their services. But it does say that the chair is to be, I guess, a person who is, I guess, in their position as an employee for the city.
But where does it say it in the state legislation? Because I don't recall seeing it,
Yes, ma'am.
is what I'm asking. Because if we're gonna go by the state legislation, then that means paying shouldn't be included if we're not able to include 9 members. I'm just saying, make it make sense to me.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
if it says that in the state legislation, then okay, yeah, add it to our legislation, because if they're gonna go preempt us over 9, wouldn't they preempt us over money to be paid for the executive director if it's not in the law?
The provisions for the executive director, it does say the mayor shall, subject to budgetary constraints approved by the council, select an executive director as a city employee whose employment is subject to approval by the majority of the members of the committee. That's what we've got in section 1663
But
right
it
now.
don't say.
So we're subject to other laws that require an employee to be paid.
Yes, ma'am.
Other parts of the Tennessee code.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
if it's not in our budget, how would they get paid?
You would have to do a budgetary amendment here in order to be able to accomplish that, yes.
Okay. I don't know.
Any other-
I just think that it's, we all need to be represented. Like, it's
Yes.
to have just 7 people, clearly somebody's gonna
Yes.
be left out. And when we look at the data that's presented, when it comes to the high crime rates, it's in our district.
Yes, ma'am.
It's in 5, 7, 8, it's in ours.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, I don't want our districts to be not over, not have anybody to represent them, but I don't want anybody else's not to be represented either. But what's gonna be the difference between us paying the executive director to do nothing versus what the internal affairs person would be doing when they investigate cases? What would be?
Well, hopefully your executive director is doing something back and forth.
It's saying the law tells you exactly what they'll be doing.
Yes, ma'am.
They review the cases after our chief of police done looked at it and made her decision. Then it get passed on to whoever if they request to look at it. So pretty much the decision is a wrap with the chief. We can't say, they can't come back and give no input and redirect what the chief decision has already been made. It's said in the law. It gives them no room to do anything, which they didn't have any teeth from the beginning, but now this further eliminates what little bit that they did have. The only control that I could see that I didn't mention, that's not mentioned in the law, is that the city council still has subpoena power.
Right.
That's the only thing that would be helpful if we was to get in and say, well, hey, we wanna hear more about this, let's subpoena this to come to city council. And that's if we would wanna do that. So we're gonna pay somebody to do nothing.
Well, that language on the subpoena power is there because it's in your charter to be able to have the authority to be able to subpoena witnesses. And, that was given, that was actually in our ordinance on the front end of it here to give that ability to this body on there for the, Police Advisory Review Committee so that, they could actually have witnesses subpoenaed if they didn't come, if y'all issued a subpoena. So that requirement's something that we've had under our charter for a long time. The issues of the state law, I guess the bottom line issue here is they have come in and tried to limit the size of police advisory review committees in cities other than us on here. They've definitely done it for Memphis and Nashville, and I guess the city of Chattanooga as well. We did not have as large a numbers of members on an advisory review committee as Nashville or Memphis could have had in that regard if everything was done by the council districts. And that's why they cut it back. I do not agree with it. You're preaching to one of the choir members here in that regard because I don't like the fact that it went that way. But that's the way the law is right now. And it clearly states that it preempts any ability of a city to do something otherwise in the state law.
Okay, so if we decide to add 9 and we vote, and they preempt us, what's the next step?
They file suit to preempt what we have done here, or I guess to have a declaratory judgment action taken in court against the actions of the city council.
Okay, because here's my thing. For weeks, I've been saying, hey, when can we get this legislation?
Yes, ma'am.
Really, it was just a copy and paste of whatever the state law said. And
Well, I think it's more than that, I hope.
and to add and to remove whatever we had that didn't want to go with it. So we now get this here to us 2 weeks before the deadline. So we really don't have time for a lot of discussion. Now we're at the deadline. We should have been had this so we can go back and forth or do whatever. Now we're pressed to make a decision, either one way or another, and that's not fair to council. We should have received this way ahead of time. Months ago, we talked about it. It's no reason why we shouldn't have had it before now. So that's my concern. The word shall is real tricky. It's real tricky. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't indicate that we must, that this is something that has to be done. But I think we done blew it up to the community like, oh, well, in order for this person to serve, like, we need somebody to pay us. As any of them can apply for the position, but in their mind, like, they saying it to us, like, if I don't wanna continue unless you pay me, well, you've been doing it for free already. You already been doing it for free, so I just got a whole lot of other concerns, so
Yes,
we'll.
And unfortunately, it doesn't provide anything for committee members even now under this provision. It's only the executive director. And it imposed that after the time when y'all normally set your budget, which is really frustrating.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Phil, question for you, Executive
Yeah.
Director, per TCA. Does it state what level, classification level of employee would come in? So is there a minimum, is there a maximum?
No, sir.
Does it
Does not.
assign,
Does not.
Does not?
Does not.
Okay, let me follow up with, could it be anything, or do we have, HR probably would hate me for this, but is there anything allowing us to set that salary?
I clearly think you would probably have to have a budget amendment if you don't have that position in your budget currently here. But you can set it at whatever you can get someone that is willing to do the duties of that position. That may be the tricky part.
And I agree with that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
With the experience required.
Yes,
Oh.
you have to meet that statutory.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I was just
okay.
asking that.
Oh, God, okay. Any other comments?
That's it.
Yeah.
I have,
So, well, I was gonna say, Councilwoman Burrs, and you came in late, we were discussing about the, 7 members with the 2 alternates, which you had asked about the 2 alternates. Phil, I don't know if you wanna reiterate what you had said about that, but, and if you've got any concerns or comments that would,
Yes, sir. I was just looking at the state law provisions that were changed on here. There was some question about the employment aspect, but it does specifically in the state bill that was passed say that you have to comply with all rules applicable to other employees of the governmental entity, and a person who is approved as the executive director has to submit certain things to be an employee of the city. So I believe the employment aspect of that one individual is out there. But I do have a concern, at least regarding alternate positions, insofar as the state statute doesn't give us up to 7 or more than 7 at all. It specifically says 7 members of a committee, and it doesn't provide for any provision for alternates to be able to vote or not vote in the event that someone else is there. So if they could not be a member with voting powers, that's the concern I've got under the statute.
Could we ask if we can have those 2 others?
I can ask the Attorney General's
I know they
office,
don't have
yes.
voting power, but
Yes.
can we ask, and if you have an alternate, like a jury alternate, if somebody doesn't show up, then if they go through all the requirements, the ride-alongs,
Sure.
I just want to know, can we have alternates so that we always have a quorum? I guess it's the best way to ask it. I believe the answer would be yes if we ask it that way.
Okay,
And that would give us 9. I wouldn't go any further than that, just
Right.
so we always have a quorum.
okay.
And ask if we can have alternates. And we would appoint 2 alternates. And let's just see what happens. The worst thing happen is say no, but I think maybe not.
Okay.
If you would, thank you.
I'll make that request, yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
any other comments? No? Did you?
I guess I'm like Councilwoman Coonrod. We want everybody to be represented. We want all our voices to be heard, regardless of the districts. We want a voice, right?
Thank you. I'd just add to this, have a couple questions. I'm not alone in my just frustration over this law. I think it's a bad law. I think it weakens park, and we've heard from our park board how disgusted they are with it. My hope would be, Phil, that we would see improvements to this legislation in the upcoming
Yes.
session. So that being said, if we vote as a council to add an employee to our roster,
Right.
and then the law changes to give us flexibility to not have to have a paid employee on staff, help me understand our responsibilities to that employee
Right.
under Tennessee employment law and our relationship with our city employees union.
Right.
So if we have somebody that comes on for 6 months and the law change, or a year, and the law changes, what kind of flexibility do we have to eliminate that position?
They would have the same flexibility that you have currently in the egg regarding, I guess, the time of, I guess, probationary period for an employee under the code on there. If it's more than a year, then that employee would be at least in the city system here. Then you have issues as well of pension benefits after 5 years if an employee is in with the city as well as any other regular employee would have with the city. So that's something that at least the state needs to be aware of. In their fiscal note associated with this, they didn't seem to think it was a big problem, but that fiscal note really didn't talk about the aspect of anyone really other than Nashville at that point in time. And Nashville's budget was quite voluminous, and ours is not.
Okay. Something to consider. this council as we add a position. Do you have any other conversation about the park resolution?
Our position, or is it the mayor's position?
The position now would be a position that would be hired by the mayor on there, and it would be subject, I believe, to
Or the mayor's
approval.
office?
So it wouldn't come out of our budget?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
but the city of Chattanooga would be adding?
yes.
Okay.
And it's, I guess, subject to confirmation by the members of the committee, which is odd in that regard as well. They're not getting the council involved in the normal confirmation, which is a little different.
Good Lord.
Yes.
Okay,
They were really bad at national.
It's somebody, yes. I don't
Okay,
think
got
us.
it.
yeah, I don't think us either.
No.
Okay, well,
Madam Chair, if I may, so on tonight's vote, it is 7.
Currently, it is 7.
And in order to get to 9, we'll have to amend it from the floor, obviously.
correct.
And then we are subject to whatever cards may fall our way after that.
Yes, sir.
So make sure I understand correctly.
What if we just amend it from the floor to take it right back to the functional body that it is, if we're gonna reap the whirlwind? Just a thought, y'all, I'm voting no for this. You guys do whatever you want. Okay, so let's move on then to our next item, which is, consideration and information about the CSAS historic designation. We have a couple of guests, or at least one guest, Todd from the Historic Preservation Group, to come and illuminate the issue.
Melissa's available if you need something from our folks too.
Yeah, Melissa, would you like
Join
to
us.
as well?
Well, thank you all so much
Yeah.
for letting us come here and discuss this with you. Preserve Chattanooga is the local historic preservation nonprofit. It used to be known as Cornerstone, so I still keep reminding people of that. And we were approached by alumni to present this application to the city for review. And I want you to know we don't take this lightly because we are asked often to protect a lot of things that aren't really appropriate to protect in this way. This is an ordinance that hasn't been used in Chattanooga since 1995, so I think a lot of folks have to be brought up to speed with what it means and how it actually works. And my job in all of this is to make sure everybody has the information that they need so that it's clear and transparent. And you all have had information sent to you in advance. It's the same information that's gone to all of the school board members and also all of the key leadership with Hamilton County Schools. And what this does is pretty simple. The Historic Zoning Commission has recommended a resolution that would mark Wyatt Hall as a local historic landmark. And it's important to know that this is specific to Wyatt Hall and not the entire property, even though the entire property is on the National Register. Back in 1986, Hamilton County Schools actually placed the property on the National Register. That's something that you have to want happen. No one can force a National Register designation on you. And so the school system was behind that. That brought them under the guidelines of the Secretary of Interior standards. And so they should be operating under that already. Nothing would change with this designation because if for any reason a building permit needs to be issued that would trigger review by the Historic Zoning Commission just for Wyatt Hall, they would go also by the Secretary of Interior standards. So we're not introducing any new local guidelines. And really, because it's for Wyatt Hall, it would have to be something pretty significant. So I don't foresee anybody wanting to take the brick off and replacing it with vinyl siding or blocking all the windows up or, doing something major. So it would really have to be pretty significant to trigger a Historic Zoning Commission review. And even so, in order to bring everybody up to a comfort level with regards to property rights for the school board, there is an economic hardship clause written into the ordinance. So if any reason the Historic Zoning Commission was to say, no, we want you to do this way, they could come back and say, we just can't do this. What are we going to do? Are we going to put on new taxes or whatever? It's a very good argument. So with the school system itself, they are pretty well protected from any kind of unreasonable requests. The end goal is to have this protected in case it ever transfers hands. And so what we would like to see happen is that if this property transfers to a private development project, that those people will maintain the integrity of the exterior of Wyatt Hall, but it keeps the rest of the land available for redevelopment. You can redevelop it any way you'd like to. This doesn't affect the interior of the property. So they can adaptively reuse that. It becomes senior housing, senior care, offices, whatever we need in the community at that time. And so it just preserves that great architectural heritage for the building. And that's what's so important to all of the alumni and everyone who's been associated with these schools over the years. So I am happy to meet with any of you one-on-one if you have specific questions, with anyone in the community at all about this, because that's what my role is to help sure everybody's informed about what this means. And we would love to see City Council support this, because a lot of communities across the country will take that extra step and protect their National Register properties locally with a local landmark ordinance. And I was so impressed when I moved to Chattanooga and took this job that you all had this in the books. It's a well-written ordinance, and
Yes.
it's a good tool for the community. So that's something to be proud of. We just need to use it. It hasn't been used since '95, so.
Okay.
But it's not a scary thing, so there's always, I want to make sure that nobody's scared by these things.
Thank you. Councilman
So
Hudson.
that wing was erected in 1935. When was the building erected?
The original building was 1920
1920 is when it was
20.
designed.
1920?
Yes.
Yeah.
R.H. Hunt was the
Which
architect.
R.H.
so
Hunt is our most significant architect for the city.
Whitehall was named after the founder of the school system. It ticks all the boxes wonderfully because you have the architecture, you have the history, but you have also how it's touched so many lives, all the people that have gone through the school. That's when you know a community building has taken on a lot of power.
Madam Chair.
Are you?
You're alumni of Arts and Science, right?
I am,
That's right.
as many people with City High School and Riverside. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Where are we in the logistical chain of this process?
I can answer that. I'm Melissa Mortimer, I'm a historic preservation planner for the city. We have already had, per the ordinance, we have to host a public meeting, which
Yep.
we did prior to, first the application was submitted by the alumni, Preserve Chattanooga. We had our public meeting set, notification was sent also to the property owner at that time about the meeting. They did not come to the public meeting. And then went to Historic Zoning Commission, which it unanimously passed, and they have submitted a resolution they wrote to present to council. So the final step would now be being approved by city council to become a
So we're
landmark.
the last step in the chain?
Mm-hmm,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Congratulations.
And again, this is, I'm excited as staff, and a preservationist that we're actually doing this since 1995 was the, actually Frank Lloyd Wright House on Missionary Ridge is our one other landmark.
Yeah.
We have had in 1991, which I couldn't find the documents on our files of what happened, but, some applications were submitted for the federal courthouse building, Hamilton County Courthouse, which I think it's important to note that Hamilton County at that time passed a resolution approving the city to landmark one of their buildings. So that's why we kind of feel it might have had a precedence set on that, but.
And I will say, if you're thinking, why is this important long-term? One of the beautiful things about these historic buildings is that when somebody, let's say the school system moves out of it and a private developer buys it, when they come in and they adaptively reuse that building, if it's still in good shape and it has followed the Secretary of Interior standards and it's there and not demolished, they actually have federal rehabilitation tax credits at their disposal. They have state grants at their disposal. There's a lot of things they can do to build their financing packages that will help make that project really successful that may not be available otherwise.
Yeah, you would get 20% back on your rehabilitation costs, which that's similar to what the Tivoli is doing now, which is gonna be a huge impact on a multi-million-dollar project. And I think, what's this school in Knoxville? They took their old city high school
Old Knoxville High,
and
South High.
adaptively reused it, and it's a beautiful project for elderly living, or?
It's senior care, but they've opened it up to all housing now, because as we all know, all cities are facing housing needs. So now they've decided that you don't have to be a certain age to live in the building, which is really great. But, you know, even here in Chattanooga, you can look over at Park Place and see how that school was turned into residential. So they actually are wonderful facilities to repurpose, and they can provide a variety of uses for a community. It just depends on what we need at the time that that happens.
Any other questions from
glad you mentioned Park Place, I was thinking.
So a couple questions that I have. When we spoke before, Todd, I implored you to talk with the owners of the building, the superintendent of schools, and what's the progress there?
I have heard nothing. I have sent letters to the key staff. I've sent emails to all the school board members. I've called the office. They said that they would reiterate the fact that there were letters sent with all of this information that they should look at. An email to Dr. Robertson has bounced back as being blocked. So, I feel like I've done everything professionally that I can do to reach out to them without being a nuisance. I don't want to take hostages and, force people to learn about preservation. But, I've done everything that I know to do to communicate. And I'm happy, I will stop what I'm doing if somebody calls and says, hey, I need to know what this really means. I am happy to do it. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Melissa, you mentioned that in 91, the county passed a resolution saying it's okay for the city to declare the county courthouse a historic
Correct.
landmark. This is currently this is a county-owned facility. Talk us through that, please.
And
Is it often
Phil-
that the owner of a building is not party to the conversation about designating it a historic landmark?
they are not required to give approval, but I think, Phil, if you want to speak to, they have contacted your office about the listing, correct?
They may have talked to Andrew, who is
Okay.
not with me right today because he's trying to have a baby here, or at least he and his wife are.
Okay.
So I am trying to get through that process myself on there. I'm not sure if he has had any contact with Mr. Bennett, who is the attorney for the county school board.
What he had told me, it was a little bit of a discussion of, does the city have the right to designate this a local landmark as we are county property?
Well, clearly, the National Register here at this point in time has got county property on it here. I was just
Yeah.
looking at the site for the Tennessee Historical Commission website, which actually shows you the 2,000 entries all over the state of Tennessee that include it. And it does have Wyatt Hall currently on that list on the way for a state historical site on here, as it does the United States Post Office on Georgia Avenue as well. And I was trying to see if it's got Walnut Street Bridge on there, and I'm trying to see any other county buildings here. Has the old jail, no, that's Hancock, that is not here in Hamilton. Let me double check and make sure if there's any other county buildings.
And I have a copy of the resolution from 91 as well, and that was looking at, we also had a letter from GSA, because it was also looking at the Solomon Building, which is a federal building. They were gonna landmark that. Again, I couldn't find anywhere in the council minutes from 92 what happened at the meeting. Look at the
They were
old
going
post
to landmark
office.
the federal courthouse, but did not.
I'm not sure what ended up happening. I know it went to,
Showing on here.
it's National Register listed. That would be different than local.
Well, and it is important to know that you cannot designate a property National Register without owner approval. And this wouldn't be eligible for local landmark without that designation. So we're just kind of going right on top of what's already been started by the school board.
Okay.
You nailed my question. That was awesome. Thank you. So the school board said yes.
They wrote the initial National
Okay.
Register nomination.
I'm making
so-
sure the owner of the property
Yeah.
has approved
I
this
couldn't
before
put-
we come in and start, I think that's a.
Well,
We're in good order, I think.
we haven't heard an official word from Hamilton County Schools on this designation currently.
Do
We've
you think
invited
that's,
them,
okay, in the sake of doing good business, do you think we probably should?
we've,
It just feels like the right, I mean, if I own
Yeah.
property and you were gonna slap a federal label on it, I really
well,
would like
this
to.
would just be local.
Understood, but still, any label.
Yeah, I sent them
I feel
certified
good that we
mail.
work together.
We've contacted them multiple times. I sent a letter inviting them to all the public meetings where it was being discussed. We had an open public meeting and then the Historic Zoning Commission meeting, all open public meetings available to everyone, and they chose to not attend.
So who are you looking for approval from, the school board?
Hamilton County Schools is the current owner.
It would
So
be
is that-
nice if
I
they
don't know
would
who that
support
falls to.
that, but
Dr. Robertson or the
I
school
think
board?
I'm thinking the
I'm thinking the school board.
But do keep in mind that legally, I mean, you all have the authority as a city to protect your historic assets. I mean, that's something that was put forth in '66 with the National
Federally.
Preservation Act. So, legal case after legal case after legal case across this country for decades has backed up the city's right to protect their historic assets. Even to the extent that, my gosh, there's one town that denied someone demolishing a building on their town square. It wasn't even architecturally significant, but if the building came down, they were going to be able to see through and see something they didn't want to see from the town square. They denied it, and it was still legally protected. So there is a lot of ability at the city level to do this.
You know, it occurs to me that this school was a city school
Mhm.
before
It was given to the
systems
county.
merged. So it was given to Hamilton County, is that what you just said?
I
Melissa?
believe so.
Okay, it's because we do
When
have
it
some
merged.
buildings that are owned 50-50 by both groups, but it would be good to get confirmation that
We
when
can
the
get that.
systems merged
Mhm.
in what, 97?
A little after 97, that was
That,
when.
that it was
election
fully
occurred.
deeded
Yes.
to Hamilton County schools. I mean, if the city maintains some ownership, that would be useful to know.
I was just noticing, at least on the National Register, the Hamilton County Courthouse is actually on the National
Yeah.
Register as well. So it does show that it applies to county buildings there. But it's not the county school system either, so different entity.
To my knowledge, only the University of Tennessee is exempt from many of the local designations as the state.
Sovereigns.
Mhm.
That's interesting. Okay.
I do want to make one more note, and that is that with the zoning, since it is like an overlay, it would be over the whole parcel. But the focus is on the historic portion of the school.
GIS
that
would
make
mark, it
sense?
does. If you look it up on GIS, it's just gonna mark that whole parcel because that's the way it has to latch on to the site. But the resolution is specific to Wyatt Hall, because we wanna make sure that they aren't concerned about what happens to the football field, what happens to the gymnasium, you know, and that nothing's going on inside. It's none of our business.
So the building is, from above, is sort of an E. So is the entirety of that E Wyatt Hall?
Wyatt Hall is the main building before the wings were added on this
So
side.
the three wings, I guess the
The resolution included.
the cafeteria and the auditorium, but
Yes.
we're only looking at the exterior, not the interior.
Correct, correct.
Jermaine is also a graduate.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too, yeah.
And we had, the alumni put together a petition and had over, how many? 6,000
Oh, it was over 8,000
or over
last time
8,000
that I looked.
signatures in support.
Your website showed 7,300 people signing the petition.
It's been updated.
It's been updated. All right, good.
You can make a lot of people very happy
Yes.
with this. There's a lot of symbolism and just showing that, you know, the community takes this seriously and would like to make sure it's protected. But then again, you also have a tool that's offers flexibility, and it doesn't lock down this site to where it can't ever be anything else or evolve as we need it to.
Okay, well, thank you very much, John. We appreciate you. Melissa, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, in our other business, we have some things that are coming up. Just for your edification, a reminder that we're getting some further information on the equity study that we approved to move forward. In November, we're going to have a report from the library. Councilman Coonrod will be bringing a proclamation related to pancreatic cancer awareness. And we also have, for discussion in the future or today, Councilwoman Knoll's idea about a legislative analyst for council. Councilwoman Knoll, would you like to discuss that at all today?
Sure, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So I want to propose adding 2 positions to our city council staff that can better support and, I guess, enhance the work of all our council members. So let me give you a little situation that I had. So there are moments when a council just does not have the full support or clarity that we need to effectively do our jobs. rules are always changing. When I first came on board, I was told one thing. Then when I did that one thing, I was told something else, that you cannot do that. So with the rules always being changing from the administration, I am just kind of tired of being told who I can and cannot talk to in reference to when I need help or assistance with something. So we need someone at the table when conversation decisions are being made, instead of, stuff just been kind of thrown at us at the ninth hour. And then we have to make decisions and vote without all the information. If I have sit down and I have thought about situations, and if I had had more information than what I had, I would have voted differently on a lot of things. Okay? So I propose the first position be a chief of staff or another name. I'm not hung up on the title. That this person is someone who can lead policy and research, and to make sure we are prepared and can push our priorities that the council have. So someone who can work with administration on our behalf and coordinate with our community stakeholders. And the second position is a director of constituent services that just serves the council, just our council. And we need someone who can make sure our constituents' needs are prioritized and we don't have to wait months to hear back from a result from or a decision that needs to be made in reference to our constituents. So this person can help us with our neighborhood meetings, instead of waiting for other city staff that may not follow back up with us about our meetings. So as a council family, I would like, if we're going to explore this, that here's what I would want to do. I see Mandy's not here today, I don't think. Is she? No. Is she?
She is not.
Okay. Or Vicky. Vicky's not here either, is she? Okay, I would like for Mandy to do a market research for competitive pay ranges for both these positions. And I'd like for Vicky to identify budget staff funds that have not been used due to position vacancies, and to see if we can use those funds to fund the positions through the end of this budget year. And Vicky to see if the budget needs to be amended, or can we just move the funds and create these positions? So if we can add to positions in the next year budget as well. So that is my take on, I feel like we can be more productive, that our constituents can have things that are important to them addressed in a timely fashion, and they not have to wait a long time to do it. And I and all of the rest of us will know exactly who we can contact in order to have things done. So, and I just hope my council family will support me in considering this, these two positions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No comments other than I look forward to hearing more about what this position might be, what might entail, or how it would be a benefit. So hopefully we'll have some more details come.
Yeah,
Be glad to.
A little bit of feedback from me. I think it makes sense to go to Mandy for market research for salaries. And then also we would need budgetary information about benefits. And, Vicky for staff funds, but I'd like to see a job description as well. And I wonder if, as we think about this, if we're reorganizing our office, what our structure would be if we're falling under the clerk. And also, what other needs within a job description the council does or does not feel that they have. I personally have been really pleased with the way that I can handle constituent services. But I do think that some additional support in-house for research, for legislation would be really useful. That's a need that I see rather than the community liaison or working with the mayor's office. The idea of pushing council priorities is interesting to me. You know, when I was elected, I brought the idea of us having a really clear legislative agenda, a strategic plan for council. And what I found is that as a council, we each bring our individual priorities, and we have a goal list that we create as part of the budgeting process, but as a council have not really established what our council priorities are as opposed to individual district priorities. So that to me would, if we were gonna have a staff person that would be the voice of that, I would wanna make sure that we had a very clear vision for them of what they would be working to achieve, so that we're not working at cross purposes. So I think, given that our chairwoman is not here today, I feel like this would be a great thing for Chairwoman Dotley to consider how best to move forward with next steps related to, does she want a job description before we go to Mandy, or if she just wants to, you know, send this straight in, according to your proposal, and then we can decide if we wanna have a vote on how to move forward. I'd like to leave that for Chairwoman Dotley. Is that okay with you?
Oh, that's perfect, no problem.
Okay. Is that all
Thank
right
you.
with the rest of council for now?
Sounds good.
Yes.
If I may, Madam Vice Chair, so I concur with your thoughts. It does get challenging at times when we are individuals, and at times, well, except when we're on the dais, we act as 9 individual silos. And gaining research in particular subject matter is something I have found challenging, and luckily I have a good support team at home that helps me, but you know, that may not be available to every council member. Plus, different resources or capabilities within that office that could be beneficial to us being even in outreach. So I think there's some definite advantages here. I know that we have ramped up, when I say we, the administration has ramped up with neighborhood services, for example, and they're doing phenomenal work in District 4, pulling together neighborhood associations and making announcements. I'm seeing a lot of activity in my district with Perrin, for example, and Kimberly, you know, you help me all the time, God bless you. I don't know what I would do without Kimberly. And because she is right on top of things, and I didn't want to make sure that that was noted for the record, number one. And I think you would concur.
Oh, Ms. Kimberly Strong is simply the best.
Absolutely,
Yes,
there's no doubt about
absolutely.
it. So I want to make sure she knows that.
Yes.
But I think there's some possibility here, so I really look forward to exploring the idea, because I know there's some challenges that I've had, and even as you go along, you pick up a lot of information, institutional knowledge or whatnot, but there are times when I just, you know, we also have jobs. This isn't our full-time job supposedly, but it turns into it quite
Yes,
often.
It is, yes.
And I think American democracy has suffered for lack of internal research staff. If we rely too heavily on outside interests to create ordinances, then
Yeah.
we don't always have the best
Okay.
ones. And that doesn't happen at the local level, but certainly at the higher levels of government. So, really interesting to think about.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we will see how Chairwoman Dotley wants to move forward with that. When she returns, she is celebrating a birthday. Okay, so after this, we will have
that
our, what's that?
So she just did that last year.
We'll have our 3:30 agenda session, and a reminder or a announcement for everyone, we will need an attorney-client meeting after agenda session today. So with that, I will conclude this strategic plan meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.